the weight loss, there will be weight loss initially, and then the weight loss will start to plateau. And then any calories that that person then consumes that's just over their new low calorie level, that because of the slowed down metabolism, that any increase in calories, even quite slight increase in calories, will lead to weight regain. And unfortunately, once that metabolic damage has been done, it's very hard to recover. And I don't know if you ever watched this program. It used to be on TV. I'm not sure if it's even still on TV. Before I knew what I know now, this was a guilty pleasure of mine. I used to love watching this program where people would have come on and they would have been put through really strict calorie restricted diets and exercise regimes, and they lost bucket loads of weight. Well, there was a research done on these individuals 6 years after they had all finished the show, and what they found was that every single one of the participants that took part in the show actually regained all of their weight, and most of them actually ended up heavier than what they were to begin with. The really frightening thing was that for every single one of the individuals, they were able to show that their metabolism had never recovered to what it was pre-embarking on a diet, which is really frightening to think. So the bottom line is that when we restrict, our hunger hormone ghrelin kicks in, we get more hungry. The outcome of restriction or dieting with increased hunger is always binge. Dieting will always lead to binge behaviors. And have you ever noticed that we never binge on broccoli? It would be fabulous if we did, but we don't. So if you remember what I told you about the brain, in a perceived famine, our brain is in survival mode, and it will seek the quickest, most energy-dense food that it can find, which, you've guessed it, will come in the form of sugar or highly refined carbohydrates. So when we're dieting and we ban these foods from your diet, it only intensifies their desire. As human beings, we don't like to be told that we can't have something. When we hear the negative of not allowed or don't, we want it even more. And typical highly refined foods that we crave, like chocolate, they activate the reward center in our brain, and they release dopamine, which makes us feel good. So the more that we have, understandably, the more that we want. So just to recap, our brain is hardwired to seek food for our survival. Our brain sees restriction, i.e. diet, as a threat to your survival. In response, the brain triggers an increase in your hunger hormone ghrelin to tell you that you must eat, and at the same time reducing your metabolism to conserve your energy. Restriction will always lead to binge behavior, and binges will always be on quick, energy, calorie-dense foods. So in short, if I haven't drummed it home enough, diets don't work. So we've looked at the physiological reasons why we overeat, but what about the psychological drivers? So when I'm explaining this to clients, I tend to use this analogy of the tree. That for all of us as individuals, we all have these core beliefs or limiting beliefs that can be known as well. And they get shaped from a very, very early age. And if you imagine that the roots of a tree, that they are growing there deep into the ground for years and years, perhaps before even the trunk of the tree appears. And they're so deeply rooted in there that they're very, very hard to shift. And those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, are shaped for a very young age, from as early as 8 years old. So we believe them wholeheartedly. And those beliefs that we hold on to stay with us throughout our life. And they will shape the thoughts that go through our mind, which is like the branches. And the thoughts that go through our mind will then produce the leaves, which are the emotions. And we can either feed our mind with the positive thoughts, which create green, luscious and healthy leaves, or with negative thoughts, which can cause the leaves to wither and to brown and to die. And for many of the women that I work with, that there's really common themes around the types of limiting beliefs that we hold. A big one that I would see with most people is the belief of not being good enough. And that can come from many, many experiences in childhood. So if we hold this belief of not being good enough, what we tend to do is be incredibly critical of ourselves, put ourselves under pressure, try to do too much, go above and beyond. And when we feel like we're not meeting our own unrealistic expectations, we give ourselves an awful time and are incredibly critical and incredibly punishing of ourselves. Our thoughts that go through our mind directly lead to the emotions that we feel. And it's emotions that will often turn us to food. So our thoughts have the power to either nourish us or to poison us. So think about a time where you ate in a way and then you immediately felt guilt or shame. What was going on? Maybe this feels a little bit like me at the minute, and I'm sure you can probably resonate with this. Maybe you're trying desperately to juggle your role of businesswoman, teacher, head chef, and being a master of all trades. And this is something I'm seeing so much, and particularly around social media, is women beating themselves up massively about feeling like they're failing their children with homeschooling. We are not equipped to be teachers. It's not a role, and we mustn't put ourselves under this extreme pressure. Maybe you were upset about something that your partner had said earlier in the day. Or perhaps you were feeling overwhelmed by how much stuff you have to do. Or you were bored or lonely. We often eat in response to negative emotions such as stress or overwhelm. And what I would ask you to do is to maybe, based on that little tree analogy that I have given, is even just start to notice what are your triggers. If you're noticing that you're turning to food more, if you're noticing you're opening the cupboard and you're reaching for things, a good thing to do is even just to begin by asking yourself the question, am I hungry? And if you're not hungry, what else might be going on? What happened just before you opened the cupboard? Did somebody say something? Did something go wrong? Did you receive an email that annoyed you? What was it that went through your mind? Because I'm guessing that there was probably some sort of thought that went through your mind that created an emotion that made you turn to food. So if you find you're going more and more often to reach for food, just stop and ask yourself that question. Am I hungry? And if not, what might be going on? So it's really common to eat in response to negative emotions such as stress. And the amygdala within the brain is active whenever we are in a distress state. The amygdala in the brain is sort of like our alarm system, and it's there to try and protect you. It's there to keep you safe, and it's known as our fight or flight. So when you're in a stressed response and you're feeling stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, your amygdala is activated and your fight or flight response kicks in. And when your fight or flight response kicks in, it makes it really difficult to think clearly or to make good decisions around food. What also happens when you're in a stress response is that there is a lot of physiological symptoms that you will feel. So you might feel very tense in your body. You might feel your heart is racing. You might be sweating. You might just feel really jittery or really on edge. And they are really unpleasant symptoms to experience and to feel. So it's very, very natural when you're feeling that way to look for some sort of release or some sort of comfort. And that's exactly what foods like chocolate will do, because chocolate actually it's been very cleverly created that chocolate has that perfect combination of sugar and also fat. And so it releases dopamine in the brain, and dopamine actually provides a very calming and a very soothing effect within the brain. So when you are stressed and jittery and on edge, chocolate actually does a really good job of calming you down. So obviously what I try and help my clients is to find other ways of getting that calming response that aren't necessarily with food. So, if our brains are hardwired to seek out these foods at times of distress, and depriving ourselves only makes it worse, what hope is there? You may be thinking that I've been a bit of the kiss of death this morning with nothing but bad news for you. So this is where EFT comes in. So I do teach clients lots of different ways of managing emotions, managing cravings. This is one of my favorite ones. So EFT. EFT is a form of psychological acupressure, and it's based on the principles of acupuncture. But instead of using needles, EFT combines gentle tapping on key acupuncture points while focusing your thoughts on pain, uncomfortable emotions, memories, cravings, or other problems. So EFT, it affects the amygdala, which is the stress center in the brain, and the hippocampus, which is the memory center. And both play a role in the decision process when you decide if something is a threat. And EFT has also been shown to lower cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. And there has been research to show that EFT, in terms of reducing cortisol levels in the body, is actually much more effective than just techniques such as breath work. And I personally would use EFT a lot of times when I'm maybe feeling anxious or overwhelmed. It is a great stress reduction tool. It's actually been around for quite a long time, around 40 years, and its origins would be more in the holistic and energy psychology fields. And I've got to admit that I'm a very rational, logical type of person. So when I first heard about it, I thought, what a load of woo-woo. I just couldn't get my head around it. But then when I seen the research that is actually being conducted around it, I was really curious and thought, I've got to look into this. The main research around EFT has been done from Australia by a world-renowned psychologist called Peter Stapleton, and she actually conducted a survey and research on 600 participants, and they took part in a 6-week online tapping program. And what they found is, when they followed up with those individuals 2 years post doing the online program, that a significant amount of them had actually lost their food cravings for problem foods. They were no longer emotional eating, and many of them had lost weight without trying to diet. And the only intervention that there had been was the use of EFT. And this is the lady, this is my hero, Dr. Peter Stapleton. And she has provided, her most recent research has provided amazing insight into the effect that EFT actually has on the brain in relation to food cravings. So what she did was she got 16 participants in a control study. And they were all people who really struggled with food cravings, with problem foods, highly refined foods. And they were all shown images of all of their favourite foods that they crave, and they were put on an MRI scan. And what they were able to show is that the amygdala, the pleasure part of the pleasure part within the brains, you can see those little red and orange kind of parts on the left-hand side, that all the pleasure parts of the brain were lighting up like a Christmas tree whenever they were shown the images of their favourite foods. And then they took half of the individuals away, and they had 4 sessions of tapping, 1 week apart, and then they brought them back in, and all of the individuals were shown the exact same food images as before. The individuals who had had no intervention, the brain lit up in the same way. The individuals who had had the tapping, there was absolutely no response on the MRI when they were shown the same food images that they'd been shown 4 weeks prior. So this was the first time that they've ever been able to capture exactly what the effect of EFT is in the brain. And these are some individuals that I've worked with recently and done tapping sessions with. So for a lot of people, they'll come to me with issues like they're stuck in habits of reaching for foods and unable to break the habits. For Tracy, it was chalky digestives every afternoon. For Tasha, it was in the evening time. She classified herself as a crispaholic, and at the same time every evening. And hers was very interesting because there was also habit association in that as soon as Coronation Street came on, it was like her brain had been completely rewired, that Coronation Street equated to crisps, and then she would spend the night eating crisps. And Rosie as well, that Rosie was a complete skeptic when it came to tapping and was amazed that we had one little session of tapping, and then weeks on I followed up with her and she hadn't eaten any. So before I come off and do the little tapping demonstration with you, I wanted to let you know about a program that I'm launching in a few weeks' time on the 4th of May. It's a 7-day food freedom challenge. So this challenge is for you if you spend too much time obsessing about food, if you have sugar cravings that are controlling your eating habits, if the bit that I spoke to you about at the beginning about dieting resonates with you, if you're always on and off the dieting bandwagon, maybe your weight is increasing and you feel like it's getting out of control, or if you class yourself as a sugar addict, then you might be interested in this challenge. And what you'll receive over the 7 days is video tutorials from myself. We'll also deep dive much more into EFT and its use for food cravings. You'll also get downloadable blueprints to help you overcome your sugar cravings. I'll be in a private Facebook group as well, doing live coaching over the 7 days, and I'll be covering loads of topics around nutrition, self-care and stress reduction, and obviously around mindset, because all of these things really feed into our eating habits. There'll be daily Q&A support and membership to a private Facebook group. The challenge is just £27, and I think there will be an email sent out for everybody that registered for this webinar. There will be an email sent out and there'll be a link to that challenge if you're interested in it, included in the email. So let's tap. So if you want to grab your chocolate bar that you have and get it ready. Okay, so hopefully you can see me okay. Sorry, it looks like there's a big blinding bit of light coming through. Okay, so hopefully you can see me and hear me. Okay, so this EFT demo that I'm going to do it just specifically related to chocolate. And what I would say is, like, I'm just going to be using some common words and some common statements, so it may not necessarily resonate with you. So this is just for kind of demonstration purposes. But if you want to join in, it's a good idea to have the chocolate and to tap along as well. I can't see you, so don't worry about it. What I would say is when people are doing the tapping, it is very funny because people feel like a bit of a wally. But don't worry, because I'm here on camera doing it and I'm going to look like a bit of a wally anyway, okay? So for tapping to be effective, it really does need to be a food that you do struggle with and that you do really have strong cravings for, not just something that you're a bit meh about. So it needs to be something that you really struggle with. And you need to have an open mind about it. So if you're doing the tapping and you're just going, what on earth, it won't be effective for you. So you need to be open-minded about it, and also to really try and connect in with the craving that you're having. Okay, so I'll do the little tapping demo. I would love for you to be tapping along with me, and then hopefully at the end we might be able to bring up a little Q&A, okay? Okay, so when we are doing tapping, the first stage is to identify what the problem is. So in this case, it's going to be craving for chocolate. And what we do is we look at how strong our craving for that food is. So if you have your chocolate bar in front of you, what I want you to do is pick up your chocolate bar and look at it. And just notice when you look at the chocolate, does anything start to change in terms of your desire for it, your craving for it? Does your mouth start to water at all? Does anything happen when you start to look at the chocolate? Then the next stage is that you tear open the chocolate and you give it a little smell. And when you give the chocolate a little smell, what starts to change? Does your desire to eat that chocolate increase once you smell? And what is it about your bar of chocolate in particular that makes you really want to eat it? And then what you do is you put a number on how strong your desire is for that chocolate. So if it was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, I really want to eat this chocolate now, the desire is really strong, where would you place your craving level? So have that number in your mind. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tap. So I'm going to talk you through what all of the tapping points are, and you just follow along and repeat everything that I am doing. And I'll be saying the things out loud, and I want you to say them out loud as well. I can't hear you, but you say them out loud because it's more effective for you to hear yourself saying it as well. So the first part that we start is this part on the side of the hand. It's called the karate chop point, and we just take 2 fingers and we tap on the side. And we start with something called a setup phrase where we're stating what the problem is. So we are going to be saying, even though I have a really strong craving for this chocolate, I accept how I feel. Even though I really want to eat this chocolate, I accept how I feel. Even though I have overwhelming craving to eat this chocolate, I accept how I feel. And then we're going to make our way, excuse me, around the acupressure point. So you just follow along and tap along with me. First point is the beginning of the eyebrow. This craving for chocolate. Outer eyebrow. I really want this chocolate. Under the eye. This chocolate smells so good. Under the nose. I can't resist this chocolate. On the chin. I really crave this chocolate. Collarbone. This chocolate is just calling my name. Now the next one's a bit weird. It's under your armpit, just where your brow line would be. I can already taste its rich, sweet flavour. And then top of the head. Just the thought of this chocolate is making me drool. Back to the eyebrow. I want to let go of this chocolate craving. It's got too much of a hold on me. I want to release this craving for chocolate. I'd like to handle my emotions without chocolate. It would feel so empowering to release this craving. I want to let go of this craving for chocolate. I want to control my emotions in a better way. I need to let go of this craving for chocolate. Okay, and then just stop. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just check in with how you feel now about the chocolate. Is your craving still as strong as it was in the beginning? Maybe give it a little sniff again to see, does it smell any different? Does it smell the same? Sometimes people notice that even the smell of the chocolate has changed a little bit. Is your desire still there? If your desire is still as strong, then what you would need to do is to go back and do a few more rounds of the tapping. But if you notice that your intensity, the desire, the craving has reduced and come down, then what we do is just one final round of tapping, which is about letting go of the craving. Okay, so just one more round of tapping. I now choose to let go of this craving. Even though it still smells good, I choose to release the desire for this chocolate. I let go of the need to have it when I'm stressed. I choose to be able to say no to chocolate. I am letting go of this craving. I choose to release the desire for this chocolate. Letting go of this craving for chocolate. Okay, and then just one final time, take a nice deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Okay, and just check in with how you're feeling, where the craving is, what the intensity is like, and has that shifted at all. So as I say, that was just a little demonstration of what tapping can look like. I'm just going for kind of a generic chocolate craving, but EFT tapping is most effective when you are really connecting in with what it is that what it's meaning to you. So what it is about that particular chocolate, what it is, you know, what are the emotions that it tends to bring up for you, why you have that particular craving. The more you can connect in with your own words and your own thoughts about it, the more effective that is. So that is me, guys. So I'm not sure if it's possible. I'm hoping that we can be put back on to if anybody has any questions.
Hi Claire, it's Catherine here. So we do have some questions actually that have came in. So the first question was, is the first round of the tapping all the things you feel you want from the food, and then the second round more of you saying no?
Yeah, so the first round of tapping, and people sometimes they struggle with this because the first round is stating all the things that you want about it. So you're stating, I really want this chocolate, it's really calling my name. So you're stating almost in the beginning what the problem is, what it is that you're really feeling about this need that you have for the chocolate. The second one is about the desire to let it go, and then the third one is about instilling the positive that you no longer need this food. So there's kind of 3 stages to the tapping.
Okay, great. If anyone does have any other questions, please pop them into the host and I can ask Claire on your behalf if you haven't sent them directly to Claire already. Another question that came in that I can answer is, yes, we have done a recording of the session, so we will share it out with you once we get it downloaded in the next few days. As Claire said, we will send out an evaluation straight after the session this morning, and we'll pop on the information for her program as well onto that, and then in a couple of days time we'll be able to share the recording. Another question, Claire, does it work for wine?
I haven't tried it for wine, but yes, it can actually be it can be effective for anything, because it's the same kind of thing really, that when you have a desire or a craving for anything, it's about the emotional release that you're craving. So wine would be quite similar to chocolate in that it's doing the same thing with the dopamine. So yes, it can work with wine. Haven't tried it though.
Great. So one other question is, could we also get a list of some tapping or support sites along with your program that we could send out in the evaluation?
Yeah, Yeah, no problem.
Great. Well, we'll get that together then on the email. And somebody then has also asked, how do you know when it has been effective?
When your desire or your intensity has come down. So for some people, I've done literally one round of tapping and their desire and their craving has just gone like that. For some individuals, it takes a little bit more time for that to happen, but you would want to be, if your intensity is quite high, 8, 9, 10, you would want to be getting that down until it feels like maybe it's a 2 or 3. So you'll know yourself when you're checking in, every round or so, take a nice deep breath, check in with yourself, see where the craving has shifted. And the brilliant thing with tapping is there's no perfect way to do it, and there's no set number of rounds that you need to do. It's just about tuning into your body, checking in with how you're feeling, checking in where that intensity is yourself.
Okay, thank you. And another question we've had, which I was thinking the same thing. Does it work in reverse to make you crave healthier foods?
You can, you can do tapping for the positive of what you're looking for. So you can do tapping around, the, and having statements. It's almost like positive affirmation statements where you're tapping with things like, I choose to eat nourishing foods. I choose to love my body. I choose to feed it well. That you can do tapping with that. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. And also we've had, should you do it every time you have a craving?
Very personal to the individual and how they feel. So, like with some people, it'll be different for everybody. With some people, like I say, the tapping just seems to completely eradicate the craving, and they don't think about that food again, so they don't need to tap again. For some individuals, what I had with a lady recently is that the craving disappeared for literally weeks, but she went through a period of stress, and just that old habit loop came back in, and she had the craving again, so she had to tap then. Some people enjoy tapping so much because what I would say, the most common emotion that I would say that drives eating is stress. Tapping is an amazing stress relieving technique. So some people just like to do a little bit of tapping every day to keep their stress levels low, so that there's not that need to go for food anyway, because they're keeping that stress response calm.
And then one final question, I think, if any more come in, we can keep going, but just one more that we've got here. Um, okay, so if you do the tapping for a particular food item like chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
if you have chocolate then at another stage as a treat, does that then kind of reverse the work you've done?
No, what you can find sometimes is that you will eat chocolate. So, like, I still eat chocolate. I do lots of tapping with people about chocolate cravings. I myself would still eat chocolate, but what I notice is different with me is that I can take it or leave it. So I can eat a couple of squares of chocolate and be satisfied and be done. Whereas prior to tapping, that probably would have been, once I started, I would have kept going because that pleasure response was always there. Now I can take it or leave it. It's not something that's a real pull for me.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions we've had in today. Thank you very much, Claire. As I say, we will have it all pulled together and we'll get some emails and the recordings and stuff out. I just want to double check that Nikki from Women in Business hasn't got anything else to say. I know she welcomed herself at the start. But if she doesn't, then I just want to say thank you for everyone for joining us this morning. And hopefully you do get involved in some of the upcoming webinars and networking sessions. The networking sessions are quite small and sort of exclusive and intimate. There's about 10 people to 12 people on those, and they're really good. We can chat about other aspects of business. We talk about other events we have, but also we just chat about everything that's kind of going on with the challenges and opportunities and things with the current situation that we're in, but also something a bit more lighthearted because I'm sure everyone's sick of talking about the same things over and over again. So do join us on Wednesdays with 3 sessions a day on a Wednesday. So hopefully you can come along to those. And yes, thank you very much, Claire, and everyone have a lovely day and hopefully enjoy some of the good weather. Thank you now.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.